Kathy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. I just didn't know, do we have anybody else in the waiting room or are we jumping right in?
We have no one else yet right
All
now.
right, well, let's jump right in then. So good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Lewis. I am the current chair of the Mashpee School Committee. I am in my second term on the committee. I have a freshman in high school at Mashpee Middle High School. I grew up in Mashpee, came back and have my family here now, and just really am enjoying the work on the school committee that I've been doing. And I'm also the recent elected secretary for Division 7 with the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. So not only do I work here in Mashpee, but I also try to keep us connected to what's going on at the state level with school committees as well. So welcome to tonight. And we have with us Don, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Don Myers. I've been on the school committee for a while. I think 11 years, maybe.
Sounds right.
And various roles. But one of the things which we're going to talk about tonight, I focus a lot on, just because I have a finance background, is our finances. And the money that we spend and allocate and spend educating our students, educating our teachers, administration, and supporting the needs of everyone so that we have enough outcomes here in Mashpee.
And I am Superintendent Patty DeBoer. Welcome to this is the second of 4 planned sort of drop-in Zoom meetings where the school committee can help to inform our parents and guardians in Mashpee community what they do in their role as members of the school committee.
Great, thank you.
Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Ashley, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Lopes. I'm the Director of Finance.
The one who prepared the original budget with input from everybody, and she's the one who pays all the bills for the district.
Yes, she is our numbers guru.
So without Ashley, everything would come to a screeching halt.
So true. So as Superintendent DeBoer said, this is our second drop-in Zoom. And tonight we're going to be discussing the fiscal year 2025 budget, as well as the 2024 Family Opinion Survey and Student Opinion Survey. And we might touch on one other topic if we have time, but we're going to see how long it takes us to get through those two first. So with that being said, we're kind of in the middle of budget season. So for those of you who don't understand municipal budgeting, it's quite a process. The fiscal year starts July 1st, ends June 30th. And because of that, we begin our process sometime in October, where Ashley will kind of start. She probably starts a little bit before then, I would say. But October is kind of one of our first big deadlines where we have to enter the proposed budget into the town system, kind of to get the ball rolling. Sorry, we've got a couple introductory slides here.
Yeah.
So currently, we serve 1,458 students. We present this narrative, we call it the budget narrative, to the town manager, and eventually it goes before the select board for their approval, which then it comes before the town for approval at town meeting. So these are some of our highlights from the last year and some of our goals, actually from more than just the last year. But these are what we like to highlight our district is doing. Donna, feel free to chime in at any point if you want to add anything here.
Well, so one of the things that I just wanted to point out here, slide discovery, that this whole process really starts a year in advance of when the budget gets submitted. So in the spring, so this coming spring, the school starts really working to try to put together all the estimated expenses, and then that process continues forward to what Kathy was talking about in regard to coming together as a district-wide budget, but it really comes from the very bottom up and gets raised and reviewed at multiple levels within the administration, so that all of the needs of the students that we can anticipate are covered. But one of the big problems is we're making a budget well in advance of when the actual expenditures are going to happen. So there is some guesswork and estimation that has to take place in doing that. And I really commend Ashley and the administration on their ability to be able to do that. I don't know as a parent I could do that, but they're able to consistently come up with a pretty good budget that supports the needs of the students.
So
Yeah, and
for
just to
example,
sorry.
I was just going to say, so what Dawn was saying, in March and April of this year, so of 24, we start to accumulate from the ground up the early workings for the budget for FY 26. So that's what kind of lead time we're talking about when we're working towards planning the future years for Mashpee.
And I think the other important thing that Dawn and Superintendent DeBoer hit on is that a lot of it is estimates, and with municipalities and towns, there's procurement is a very big thing. So we may have a project that we can estimate, but until it goes out to bid, until we get those quotes back, we don't necessarily always know the full scope of the cost. And so sometimes we're estimating for things that we need to put in the budget, but we don't always have hard numbers until things come back to us through that procurement process for some of the bigger projects. So just keeping that in mind too, that it's more than just kind of looking at numbers. There are some estimations made, and I think I'm going to echo Dawn's point here that we have a great team that really is able to do a good job and keep a pretty good budget that is making sure the needs are met and the facilities are maintained and it's working. So that being said, sorry.
I was going to add, and then we can do it when we're later on the slide, but about 81% of our budget is personnel. And in most cases, we have a very good handle on each individual who's within that budget, where they are in terms of what their salary is supposed to be the following year. So we feel confident generally with that number, but then there are always variables with unexpected retirements or what someone comes in at. So while there's a lot of knowns, there are always those unknowns. So
what we're looking at now is in the budget overview, we like to show what we had the previous year compared to what we are requesting for the next year. So currently we are in fiscal year 24. We are getting ready to make our request at town meeting for fiscal year 25. As you can see, we are requesting a total of $25,434,353, which is an increase of 4.44%. So it's not a massive amount. It's mostly, as Superintendent DeBoer just said, a lot of it is tied to salaries, which are contractual obligations. And we did, what you're seeing, the school choice offset and capital improvement program, those items, they've been taken out of the initial recommended budget. And so what we hope to have approved by the town manager and the select board will be that $25,434,353. And we're in the process of that now. So we'll hopefully see some more information on that soon, but that is what we're looking at in this slide. Dawn, you want to add anything to this or move on?
Go ahead, move on.
Okay. In our budget narrative, and when we present this to the town, we like to show our plan for success, which is our 5-year plan for how we improve the school district and things that we've identified as needing to work on and work toward. It includes our mission statement for the district, our vision for the district, core values, and then our 4 pillars of success. Portrait of a graduate, which to the right here, you can see the 5 pieces of the portrait of a graduate. You can use your QR, you can scan the QR code to learn more about them, about each one of them, but those are the 5 things that we feel every student in Mashpee Public Schools, when they graduate, should be fully competent in. And then diversity, equity, and inclusion is another pillar, teaching and learning, and then Mashpee, a connected community. So as the budget's being developed, the items that we're looking at on the budget, the initiatives we're taking within the schools, what the district needs are, we try to make sure that they are all aligned to this plan for success so that we are moving this plan for success forward, and ensuring that our students are graduating with these 5 competencies. So that is why we include this in the narrative, the budget narrative, because we do want people in the town, not just the parents of the students, but taxpayers in town who are also funding this budget, to understand what their money is going toward. And this is a big piece of that. Don, if you want to add anything.
No, you did a good job on that one.
May I add that just for everyone who is listening, under each strategic objective, there is a series of initiatives, not presented on this slide, but definitely in the full narrative that's posted to the website. And each year, this is year 3, this is going into year 4, we've chosen certain initiatives to focus on. And then hopefully by the time we're in the last year, we will have spent time accomplishing all of the initiatives or the action steps to reach the strategic objectives.
Exactly. So if you want to read more of that, you can always go to our website and find that. We also include that. You can probably find it in a couple of our packets from meetings as well.
Yes.
As we kind of talked about the budget timeline a little bit already, but here it is presented, and it shows you a little bit more where we're at the moment. So as we said, early spring, we kind of start, the district leadership begins meeting. We establish our goals and priorities of the school committee, goes to the finance working group to review in the summer and the fall, where the draft is made. October, as I mentioned, that October deadline, that's when the budget is entered into Munis, which is the town's counting system. October through December, we review as a school committee, we review the budget, we kind of fine tooth comb it, make sure that the items we feel need to be in there are in there, the amounts that we that look like they should be in there are in there, questions get answered. Ashley is great at answering our questions. And for those of you who don't know, sometimes we as school committee members will ask questions, mostly Don, who is our financial hawk here. But I will say a lot of his questions are the ones that I end up wanting to ask as well. So he covers a lot of the things I have questions on. I also learn from his questions too. But those questions sometimes get emailed to Ashley. You can access those questions through our website at any time. They are made public. So if you ever had a question of like, why didn't they ask about this? Chances are pretty good it has been asked. It just was asked outside of the meeting, but it is made public through those emails and linked on our website. So basically right now we've presented to the town manager. The school committee has voted on this. On the 17th, we voted to approve this budget. The next day was presented to the town manager. And now we kind of are waiting for the budget to be presented to the finance committee sometime in March. And then once the finance committee makes its recommendation, it will go before our annual town meeting on May 6th, which is why it is important that people go to town meeting if they can and vote to approve it. So.
And I just
So-
want to go ahead, Don.
So just to elaborate a little bit on this process. So we have sent our proposed budget as far as for appropriations requests to the town manager. The town manager obviously is reviewing it, and if has questions, will get back to us. Sometimes in the past, the town manager has come back and said, he can't balance the town budget and has requested us to, try to make cuts in our budget. And, where possible, we have tried to accommodate him. In the omnibus budget that will be presented at town meeting, there will be the school's requested appropriation budget. There will be the town manager's requested appropriation by department, so therefore for the school district. It's important for people to understand that when you're voting at town meeting, you're voting on the town manager's request. You're not voting on the school committee's request. So if there is a difference, and there has been in the past, it's actually the town manager's line item that is being voted on, and it's usually done in totality. So you're voting on the entire omnibus budget. There is a possibility that the townsfolk might not approve the budget, and if that was the case, then what would happen is whatever the difference would have to be rectified on town meeting floor. I've been attending meetings for 20 years. That's never happened, but that's always a possibility. Usually the school and the town manager are able to come to some sort of agreement in regard to any differences in the omnibus budget. The select board and the FinCom provide recommendations in regard to whether they recommend that voters approve or not approve the omnibus budget, and also the capital improvement plan. So those are recommendations. Those are not, they do not have the ability to change the budget, but they can provide at least their recommendations to the voters, and that will be published in the annual report.
And just to trail onto that, that's for those who are maybe new to town meeting format. That's when they go through the omnibus. I never say that word right. When they go through that budget, the town manager's recommended budget, that's when you'll hear people say hold, like they may ask for a hold on an item. And that would be when you could question why there's a difference between the school committee's requested and what the town manager's proposed is. So again, for those who might be new, I know, again, some of our stakeholders are new to town. Some of our families are new to town, might not have experienced town meeting before. But as Dawn explained in great detail, I think that process, if you do come to town meeting and you hear someone as they're going through that budget say hold, that's a way to ask questions at that point. So.
And just to add that it is my understanding that this week the town manager is meeting with his team of planners at town hall and reviewing all of the submitted operating budgets, and that if there is going to be a requested change to our budget, we should be hearing about that very soon.
Excellent. So as we prepare the budget, Dawn mentioned it starts from the bottom up. There are guidelines to it that we try to adhere to. We want to make sure we're covering all of our legal and contractual mandates. We want to make sure that anybody who, has some kind of legal or contractual obligation is fulfilled. We want to include sufficient operating and capital funds to address, as we said, the plan for success and implementation. We would like to keep current level of educational services for Mashpee students. We need to keep up with our technology services and demands. for all of our students. And in Mashpee, we're very fortunate to be able to provide our students with a one-to-one. At least that starts what, in 6th grade? It's a one-to-one, or does it go younger than that now?
No, it's pretty well all the way down.
Okay,
Yeah.
so in Mashpee, we're very fortunate to have that one-to-one technology to student ratio, which is really amazing. We also want to make sure our budget covers any updates to curriculum and also addresses the increasing social emotional needs of our students through staffing and programming. Don, you want to talk about those last two?
I'm gonna cover those in the.
Okay, so the other guidelines that we cover are school choice program funds. We want to maintain a $250,000 floor as kind of our emergency fund. And we'll get into school choice funds, I think, in a few minutes, a little deeper. And we also assume that ongoing practices and protocols to maintain the facilities are funded through the DPW's operating budget for 2025, fiscal year 2025. Again, for those who might be new to the district or to the town, Mashpee, our buildings are not operated by the schools, or not maintained rather by the schools. They are maintained by the DPW. So any facility improvements, repairs, upgrades, anything building wise, in terms of repairs and maintenance is handled by the DPW and not by the school department. We work in conjunction with them, and on some things we may provide some funding and they may provide funding, but there are certain things that when we're building our budget, we are assuming that certain things that they have been paying for in the past will continue to be paid for, such as the MERV 13 filters, hand sanitizer, sanitizing wipes, disinfectants, those types of items. So.
And also to have everyone realize that the custodians are not part of our personnel budget, nor are the groundskeepers. They all fall under the DPW. In the year-end reporting, there's an allocation related to our buildings, but we don't have control over those components.
The other piece that people should be aware of that's not included in the town or in the school budget is for our technical school in Harwich. That is a separate line item that for both operating expenses for each of the students. Mashpee gets a allocation set by the technical school. Mashpee also similarly is paying for capital improvements. So the recent new building that was built for the technical school, Mashpee will be paying for I think the next 10 or 15 years or maybe longer. So those are two significant expenses that are not included in the school budget.
But like you were talking about before, at town meeting in the omnibus budget, there is a line item where you will see the Cape Cod Tech operating budget, Mashpee share of it. And when, I mean, they have the same, well, not the same, they have a similar process so that superintendent goes to each of the towns to present his budget to the select board. And then again, FinCom and select board make their recommendation to approve it or not. So you'll see it in total in terms of.
Technically, it's usually a separate warrant article for the Cape Cod Tech, usually. I don't think they include that. No, it's in the omnibus?
It's in the omnibus budget.
Okay, I'm confusing it with where I work, sorry, because they do a separate warrant article for that one.
Yeah, and contractually, the representatives on the school board for the technical school are appointed by the town. They're not part of the school committee. So it truly operates as kind of a separate school from the public school.
Right.
Yep. So the big question, where does all the money come from? And that's what this slide kind of shows. And in the budget narrative, we try to really clearly spell out where we get our funding from. We do get about in FY25, we're anticipated to get about 800,000 in grants. We talked about school choice program funds. So those are monies that come from students who come into Mashpee for an education from a neighboring town. There is money that moves between districts to cover the cost of students who are utilizing school choice to attend a school in a different town. And that is always spent in arrears, a year in arrears. So the FY25, that's coming from the money from this year that we've earned from students school choicing into Mashpee Public Schools. The town of Mashpee, we do ask for the remaining amount, which is usually a large lump sum. And then the state has what is known as Chapter 70 state aid, which is a calculation, it's an equation that the state uses to determine how much funding each town and city in the state receives. So go ahead, Don.
Ashley, I don't know offhand the exact amount, and you probably know it off the top of your head, but for each student who comes to Mashpee under the school choice program, the state calculates what the reimbursement is, and I believe it's around $5,000. Is that still correct?
It's $5,000 per student if they're here for the entire year. If they're here for a shorter period of time, it is prorated.
All right. So we're getting reimbursed $5,000. The superintendent and administration, along with working with the faculty, determine how many seats that we can accommodate at various grades in regard to having students from outside who do not live in Mashpee come to Mashpee. And that's really, if we have a class of, let's say, 12 people, and the normal size for that particular class is 16, then the belief is generally that class room could support 4 students who are coming under the school choice program. And and that's done at a grade level by grade level basis, build up on an annual each year, and that determines how many school choice seats are going to be available. That information is presented to the school committee, and then the school committee ultimately votes on that. And then there's a lottery that's done, or is publicized as seats are available, and if necessary, lottery is done in order to fill those. So just to give a little bit of perspective, and this is old information, but DESE calculates what a per student expenditure is. And so for 2022, this is the latest information that DESE has published. They're showing that for in-district expenditures, we're spending $21,676. So just contemplate the difference between we're getting reimbursed $5,000 and we're spending on average $21,676. Now that calculation includes, building costs, etc. So that's a fully loaded one. But just to give you an idea of what you're spending as a taxpayer per pupil.
So just to add a little clarification, we do look across each grade level when we're considering where to add school choice or offer school choice seats. We look at our resources because school choice is not meant to increase the budget in any way. We're not going to add a teacher in order to accommodate 20 more school choice students. So we do look across each grade level, and we also look at sort of our past experience with the number of students who move in and out during the summer, where, like, say, 8th grade to 9th grade, we tend to lose some students because they have other choices. So we have places to look at to try to be consistent. But when we open up school choice seats, we are taking sort of the resources we currently have in place and finding out where there are spaces to add children in without increasing the budget in any way.
And just to point out, the Chapter 70 aid has always been an issue with the state as far as they provide a lot of unfunded mandates that don't come with funding. That Chapter 70 aid for FY23 was $4,772,000. So, it's gone up about $80,000 from FY23 to 24, and we're projecting not much of a change. It looks like no change for next year. So, that's not a big source. It's really the town that ends up providing us with the biggest source of our funding. And if you look in total, the school budget used to represent roughly about 45% of the town budget. With the sewer projects and all of that stuff coming in, I'm not sure what that percentage is going to be. My guess is it'll probably drop a little bit, but by far we are one of the biggest expenditures and obviously one of the biggest employers also.
And sure everyone realizes the Chapter 70 aid goes directly to the town of Mashpee.
Right.
Yes. So the budget gets split in a sense into two categories. We've got the personnel budget, we've got the operating budget. So personnel budget really reflects the salaries of our contracted faculty and staff. As you can see, a lot of these are known because of the contracts, what the increases will be. We just finished up our last round of negotiations, so we should be good for another 3 years with our wonderful faculty and staff. And that is a lot of what we're looking at here. There was an increase of about $900,000. And again, this is all, these are known increases. So this is, as Superintendent DeBoer said, about 81% of the budget is tied up to these numbers. We did request this year a new position, a part-time pilot position for a data analyst to focus on student data, whether it's test scores, whether it's participation in sports or clubs or after-school activities, classes, just across the board, analyze the data coming out of our classrooms, but using specifically the lens of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging to make sure that we are lifting up all our students in Mashpee and making sure that the choices we are making and funding are actually increasing our students' achievement and ensuring that they are leaving Mashpee as best prepared for the world as they can. We also do have some curriculum and technology increases, and there are some potential unanticipated personnel changes, like Superintendent DeBoer mentioned. We never know exactly who's going to retire or who's going to come in for the year. So sometimes those can be unknown changes. But for this budget, there are no increase to full-time employees, those FTEs. But like I said, we are requesting that part-time pilot position. So that is a slight increase from last year to this year. Don, do you want to add anything to this, or?
Just to point out that this is FY25 is the second year of our 3-year contract with our teachers union, which is our largest. FY24 was the first year. But the other point I just wanted to make was that while our overall headcount hasn't increased, the allocation of the headcount will be changing. And I'm going to pass that to Patty if she wants to make just a little bit of a comment about that and what you're looking at.
And I apologize, I see an error. I was trying to fix it. Can you repeat your question?
So while our head count is not changing, the allocation of our head count to the various schools is changing based
Okay.
upon the needs. And so you just want to talk a little bit about that process and why why we're making those changes.
Yeah, so our bottom line goal is to, as a way to address the social emotional needs of our students post-pandemic, is to reduce our class sizes. We feel that that is one strategy that will lead to improved academic outcomes and wellness for students. So we have a goal of our K-8 classrooms being at an enrollment of 16 students per class. And then also, so that goes all the way up to 8th grade, also at the college prep level courses at Mashpee Middle High School, we also have a goal to keep those class sizes to 16 so that we're better able to support the learners. We have looked across our resources in total, and in looking at current sort of teacher loads at Mashpee Middle High School, we believe that we can reallocate teachers down into the 5th and 6th grade level, which will then cause a little bit more shifting lower. So just last week, I sent out the email informing staff of what the plan was and seeking volunteers. So far, I already have one from the middle high school, which currently is over-resourced, to shift a few down to the elementaries so that we can reach our goal. And we do feel strongly that we can accomplish this goal with our current staff, which is, we're very fortunate to have a pretty expert group of individuals who work for us.
All right. You want to go to the operational expense slide?
Sure. So this is just a quick overview that shows you the breakdown of the personnel. It does remain pretty static from year to year. You'll see a little slight difference in Quashnet Special Ed to Quashnet Special Ed from FY24 to FY25. Generally, there's pretty much consistency. The other piece up here is the two schools. Sorry, regular ed and special ed. But I will go to the next slide. This is the operation, non-personnel.
Right. So
Go ahead, Don, you take.
So really, this is, if you look at what's entailed here, the two biggest items that stick out to you are going to be out-of-district tuitions and transportation. I will handle the transportation, and I will defer to the superintendent on the out-of-district. But so transportation, Mashpee is one of the few, if last, schools here on Cape Cod and probably around the state that provides free transportation, or i.e. free buses, to all of our students. So everyone who lives in Mashpee can ride the bus. There's no bus fees. If you move to Barnstable, you're going to pay a bus fee. That is something that we have been doing for a long time. We feel it's important that this is not a burden on students and families to be able to get to school. The other items that are listed here, excluding the out of district, a lot of supplies are included in here. Technology is included in here. Those are things that help support our teachers in the classrooms, support our faculty and administration to be able to do their jobs. This is something that doesn't increase a whole lot year over year. Matter of fact, this is increasing less than the total of the budget is. So with that, I'm gonna let Patty just talk briefly about the out-of-district tuition and what that's made up of, to make sure that it's said concisely and correctly.
Well, I might actually have Director of Finance Lopes involved as well. What I did want to say to everyone is that the narrative that is posted on our website describes, so when you look at the percentage change, we look at anything that seems sort of abnormally high, anywhere from the 9.61% that you see at the district administration, the 35.6 at Coombs. There is an explanation for all of those within that narrative, just to clarify, if you're wondering, that seems high, even though, as Dawn pointed out, overall, the increase is 3.75%. Director of Finance Lopes, do you want to add the out-of-district piece for, I know that we've had students who have graduated out of the program?
Yes, so out-of-district tuitions are related to are student specific. So those costs relate to the services that we provide to students who are outside of the Mashpee Public Schools receiving special education services. Those will change year over year depending on what services are needed and what students are in district and out of district. It's a very fluid number. A lot of towns, we'll talk about, this number can break a budget year over year. So our administrative team works very closely to project what the out-of-district tuitions will be from year to year. Last year, right as we submitted our budget, the state gave us a 14% increase for private placements. So that really impacted school districts in their projections. This year, you can see that we have a reduction because we had a change in services of those students who are out of district.
And just so everyone knows, that a student who's out of district or needs support, we cover that until they age out at age 22. It's not 18 when they graduate high school.
All right. So just in the essence of time, there's a number of other slides that are in the presentation that's posted on the website. If anyone has questions regarding the information that's contained in here, please don't hesitate to reach out to the school committee or reach out to the superintendent or the finance director. They would be more than happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, and we are definitely available and happy to answer any questions you might have. But like Dawn said, I'd like to echo, if you have questions or if you just have some time and really want to look at these numbers, it's all posted online. For full transparency, we try to make it easily understood by our families and taxpayers in town. So please feel free to look through those. And just pay attention to the numbers and be at town meeting to vote to help approve this. So, did you want to talk CIP? You paused here for a minute.
Well, we did. So the CIP committee did meet and approve both the 50,000 and 25,000 that you see there that were our CIP requests. Now that's within the committee. The committee still has to come down to sort of their total. We're sort of almost there. And then what's the total that the town manager is comfortable with and moving forward with. But specifically within the committee, those items for the schools have been approved. Down below, as we said, the DPW is responsible for maintaining our buildings. So a lot of times there are CIP requests that come through the director of the DPW, Catherine Lawrence. So flooring replacements, fire alarm upgrades is particularly at the Mashpee Middle High School. The Coombs School safety and security window film, because they have a lot of glass. And then we're asking, she put in 75,000 for an engineering design for the access road that we are seeking. It includes a pedestrian walkway, but it would be for bus transportation and emergency vehicles to try to alleviate some of the stress on Old Barnstable Road at arrival and dismissal.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. And if you're still with us, we're going to take our last 12 minutes here to talk about our annual family parent guardian survey and then our more recent student survey. So the school committee, we don't want to operate in a vacuum. You know, we were elected to represent the families and taxpayers of Mashpee. But we do try to keep a student forward and student-centered view as we're doing our work. In order to do that, we found that it's very important and helpful to actually hear from families. And what, 3 years ago we implemented the student version of the survey, or 4 years ago?
This will be the third year for students.
So 3 years ago, in an effort to increase student voice, we distributed a very similar, almost identical survey to students in grades 5 through 12. But we're going to talk, I think, first, we're looking right now at the parent guardian survey for students in grades 5 through 12. And students in grades 5 through 12, sorry. So every year we send this out, we collect the data, and this is what we try to use to inform our goals and decisions as we as a committee work and try to ensure that our schools are the best they can be. Don, you want to add anything to that before we kind of go into the questions and how that all comes about?
No, I mean, because we've been doing this, particularly with the parent survey for a number of years, it gives us an ability now to take a look at trends over time to see whether or not there's improvements based upon any changes that we've made in various areas. And typically, the questions that we're asking are very similar or verbatim year over year. So it gives us confidence that the feedback that we're getting should be reflective of what we're doing.
Yes, and you know, we do look at those year over year statistics, and that's why, you know, it may seem like a lot of questions, but the information that we get from these surveys is quite invaluable for us as a committee. So, you know, if you feel like it's the same old, it really isn't. And we really do appreciate you taking the time to answer it for each one of your students. We should mention that this goes out to every family, and we ask that you fill one out for every student in every school or grade that you have a student in, so that we can get kind of a holistic picture of your thoughts on the schools and on your students' experience in the schools. This year, we are going to do something a little different to try to increase participation. And Superintendent DeBoer's edit there just reminded me of that. We are going to be incentivizing this a little bit for families with a drawing for some Amazon gift cards if you complete the survey by a certain date, which will be included in the sending of this. And this is kind of the draft that we're working on right now. So as you can see, some questions might have changed from the year before. Some questions are added, like specifically I'm looking at question 8, where you can see the wording that we had from the previous year. Our outreach working group meets and they review this with the superintendent. They go question by question to see if the question, you know, should stay, if it's a legacy question. Are we still looking for that information? Are there things that we should add? You know, during the COVID year, we had a section of questions that were very specific to COVID, to policies surrounding COVID, to try and gauge what families were thinking during that time. Clearly, those questions are not on these surveys anymore because we've kind of moved past that a little bit. But we do have other questions that we've added since then and have come and gone. So,
So the blue, if it's shaded blue, those tend to be our legacy prompts, which means they've been on for, if not all the years, most of the years. So those we keep. There was,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say there was some suggestion to move a few questions around just so that if they were specific to staff, they were all sort of connected in one zone.
I do want to speak also to the fact we do ask for your email in this, not so much that we can identify you off the bat, but more if there's a really glaring issue that the district can address and are able to, we would like to be able to reach back out to you. So while the the survey is going to ask for, it still does, correct? Superintendent DeBoer asked for the email address.
It
this morning?
asks, it actually asks for the names, it asks for like the student names. But I will reemphasize what Kathy just said, is that the principals, the only person that really sees this information is me. The principals do not even see the actual details that come in, because we encourage everyone to include any narrative that they would like. And I have found that to be extremely beneficial and helps with problem solving. That would be harder if it was anonymous, but the schools do not see specific parent or guardian responses by name. They just see it in the aggregate.
Exactly. So while it appears like that information will be distributed with your responses, it really is not. Even at the school committee level, when we review these answers, we are not seeing your name, your child's name, your email, any of that. It's really just if there is a really big concern or issue expressed in a response, it gives the district the ability to dig a little deeper and see if there's a more immediate fix for your student than waiting for a district-wide change. You know, it's more so we can tailor that to your child and make sure we're addressing any glaring issues right off the bat. That being said, the surveys, what are we at this year? We're at we jumped
Oh,
to,
did the questions?
yeah, so we're at 44 questions, right?
No.
36,
So
sorry.
it's 36 for the parent guardians, Quashnet and MMHS, 33 for Coombs parents. And then the last two columns are students, the MMHS and then the Quash.
So we do also put this through a parental, right? We still reach out to the parents.
We're
Mhm.
probably going to do a Zoom where we're going to go over all these questions as well. And sometimes it's a word change. It makes a lot of sense from a perspective of a parent. So it's good.
Yes. And I'm
Just
sure.
so-
Go ahead.
Just to elaborate on one thing in regard to confidentiality. So what is shared with the school committee is only aggregate information. It is not individual information. So just to emphasize that, the only one who's seeing that is the superintendent.
Right.
Yes. So again, these surveys are very important. They're usually sent out. We're sending this out right around February school break, correct, Superintendent DeBoer?
We are still aiming for probably around the Wednesday we get back from the February vacation. We're going to probably extend it a little bit into March. We are trying to have it be available at some of the school events because there is a strong desire to have a table and encouragement to have people complete the survey there. The other piece too is we trying to incentivize with the Amazon gift card, which thank you to the boosters as they have provided that to us. We will also do some sort of the students at the middle high school kind of like the idea of some type of a gift card as well. The elementary schools are going to do some sort of like pizza party challenge for, 100% participation with, taking your time and reading the questions carefully.
Which is great because, while parents see things one way, as a parent, I know my perception might be different than my child who is in the building day in and day out. So as a school committee member, it's very interesting to see the differences between the parents' answers and the student answers, or in some cases, the similarities between the parents' answers or guardians' answers and the students' answers. So this, again, I can't stress enough. I know it seems kind of like, oh, I got to take a survey, but we do use this data very much to understand, what people perceive the need in our schools ought it to be. Last year, we had some scores on some of these questions regarding safety and how our children feel in school, if they feel safe in school. It was a little vague last year. I think this year we've kind of made that a little bit more clear, correct? I'm trying to see.
Yeah, it's 20, it's quite right at the top of the screen, 26.
Yeah. So this year we're going to kind of separate it out between physical safety and emotional safety. But the overall notion last year was not exactly what we had hoped it to be. So when we were making our goals as a school committee in August, we really wanted to focus on the safety of our students and making sure that students who attend Mashpee feel safe. So we do use these answers, and we do look at these answers, and we try to inform our decisions based on some of these perceived needs and perceived experience, and these experiences. I shouldn't say perceived experience, they're experiences that people are having that are making them answer this way. So, please take a few minutes to answer these questions for each one of your students. And if you have a student, remind them, say, hey, did you take that survey yet? Because it's important information, and we really do value it.
In terms of the students this year too, last year we picked a block of time at the middle high school and said, okay, everybody's going to take it. Well, there was some crashing and burning involved with that. So we are going to be very specific as sort of 7th grade is taking it on this day during this block of time. And so spreading that out for their initial, and obviously kids can finish it. Also, no student is required or forced to take it. It is still voluntary, but we are going to work with our teachers and to make sure that we're all messaging the importance of student voice and answering the questions. So hopefully that will help.
Yes. Of course, it's not mandatory, but it is appreciated. So
Very much.
that is, yes, very, very much. Dawn, do you have anything else you want to add to the survey?
No, I think, the school committee, the superintendent have put a lot of work into trying to craft an informative survey. They have done some focus groups to try to refine it and make sure that we're covering the right things here. So, and I hope that we're able to get a high percentage of both parents and students participating in it. So I look forward to seeing what the results are.
Agreed. It is always very interesting that night when we get to kind of review those results. So that being said, thank you again for tuning in tonight. Hopefully you've got a little bit more understanding of our budget and how we craft and develop and present and vote on our budget. Hopefully those of you who watch this will be at town meeting to help support the schools and the approval of our budget. And then also hopefully you understand why we do our our family survey as well as our student survey. And as Dawn mentioned earlier, if you ever have any questions, all of us school committee members, we do have personal emails, but we also have a group email, schoolcommittee@mpspk12.org. So please, at any time, if you have questions about anything school committee related or school related, we can either answer or direct you to the person who can, depending on what the question is. But we definitely welcome hearing from families and constituents because we recognize the importance of our schools and how it factors into our town budget as a whole. So thank you for spending some time with us tonight, and hopefully you found that informative.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to.
Thank you.
Oh,
As soon as okay, I'm going to stop recording now.